The 1971-72 Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers organization has a long, rich history of success and have had several teams with a worthy argument for the title of greatest team of all time. As good as the Shaq and Kobe Lakers were, and the Showtime Lakers of the 80s, there's a strong likelihood that the first Los Angeles championship team might have been the greatest of them all. To start the season, the Lakers had the 6'3" Jerry West starting at point guard, the 6'1" and underrated Gail Goodrich was starting at shooting guard, Elgin Baylor was at the 3 spot, the 6'7" Happy Hairston was at the 4, and the dominant Wilt Chamberlain was starting at center. Rounding out the roster was guys like Jim McMillan, Keith Erickson, Flynn Robinson, Leroy Ellis, Pat Riley, John Trapp, and Jim Clemens. Heading into this season, this team was not expected to be as good as they would be. In the past few years, they had come close to winning the NBA championship multiple times, but they couldn't get it done. They had been dealing with numerous injuries, and on top of that, their best players seemed as if they were past their glory days, as Jerry West was 33, Wilt Chamberlain was 35, and Elgin Baylor was 37 years old. On top of all of this, they were entering this season with their third coach in only 4 years. It appeared as if their championship window had completely shut. But the new coach would soon change that perception. Bill Sharman was a former Boston Celtic who several of the Lakers players competed against while he played in the NBA. Sharman's emphasis on team play and fast break basketball would do wonders for this group. He came in with high expectations and a fierce work ethic and quickly changed the culture for the Lakers. Many of the Lakers players said that those preseason workouts were the toughest workouts they've ever been a part of. He had the team in great shape and the focus continued to be on transition basketball. At this point, Wilt Chamberlain's days of averaging 50 points were well behind him, and instead, Sharman had Wilt focusing more on a team game, which ended up fitting perfectly with this new Lakers offense. In years past, typically teams with Wilt Chamberlain didn't run the fast break much because although Wilt would secure the rebound, his teammates would wait for him to get up the court so they could feed him the ball down low, since he was the focal point of their offense. But now, Wilt was used to get the fast break started with his amazing rebounding and his elite outlet passing, as he then relied offensively on his other Laker weapons. Along with those key aspects of his contributing was Wilt's all-time great rim protection. Wilt stood 7 foot 1 inches tall and had a 7 foot 8 inch wingspan, which he used to its fullness all season long to shut down the opposing teams in the paint. On the season, Wilt averaged 14.8 points, 19.2 rebounds, and 4 assists on 65% shooting. Unfortunately, blocked shots were not tracked until a later date, but I'm sure Wilt would have averaged a ton of them. For this new offense, Sharman wanted Jerry West to play more as the floor general and be the team's main facilitator. It translated to West averaging a career high and leading the league with 9.7 assists per game that season. He also averaged 25.8 points and 4.2 rebounds on 47.7% shooting. Despite all the scoring from West, he was actually not the team's leading scorer that season. That honor went to the underrated legend I mentioned earlier, their starting shooting guard Gail Goodrich. This was Gail's breakout season as he was the main beneficiary of West's new role as a distributor in transition. Gail played all 82 games that season and averaged 25.9 points, 4.5 assists, and 3.6 rebounds on 48.7% shooting. Despite a solid game plan and coaching scheme, after 9 games into the regular season, the Lakers were off to a bumpy 6-3 start, as they hadn't quite played the fast-paced transition basketball that Sharman had envisioned. A major part of that was Elgin Baylor's age and his deteriorating knees. He couldn't quite keep up with the quickness of the rest of the Lakers' offense. Sharman approached Baylor about a reduced role where he could come off the bench and allow younger players to get his starting minutes. But instead, Baylor recognized this as a sign that he couldn't play the game as well as he wanted to, and decided to retire on the spot just 9 games into the season. Losing one of the greatest players the game has ever seen might initially seem like a detriment to the team, but it was actually quite the opposite on a historic level. Replacing Baylor at the starting small forward position was the 6'5", 23-year-old Jim McMillan, who with his coast-to-coast scoring abilities was more than happy to help push the tempo of the Lakers' offense. He also revealed himself to be a reliable wing defender. Now with the perfect nucleus to execute the game plan as intended, the Lakers weren't just rolling, they were steamrolling the competition. Immediately after the departure of Baylor, the Lakers went on their legendary winning streak. The previous record for the most consecutive wins was at 20 games, and the Lakers would make that streak look laughable. Los Angeles went through the entire months of November and December without losing a single game. They set the new NBA record at 33 straight wins, an astonishing feat that still stands to this day. Their streak was snapped by Kareem, Oscar Robertson, and the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, keeping the suspense that Milwaukee still might eliminate the Lakers once again in the playoffs. The Lakers continued their dominance throughout the regular season and were hitting their stride again just in time for the playoffs. Just a week before the postseason was set to begin, they defeated the 51-win Warriors by a ridiculous 63 points. They finished the regular season with a 69-13 record, which was an NBA record for a couple decades afterwards. Into the playoffs now, and they came out of the gate strong, sweeping the 57-win Chicago Bulls in 4 games, and it was the Laker backcourt that led the way, as Goodrich and West each averaged an efficient 28.5 points per game. The next series was a matchup with the 63-win and defending champion Milwaukee Bucks. Despite the star power and championship experience on that Bucks squad, the Lakers group was still ultimately too much, as they beat the Bucks in 6 games. The NBA Finals was more of the same, as they comfortably beat the New York Knicks in only 5 games. Goodrich led the team in scoring that series with 25.6 points, but it was Wilt Chamberlain who took home the Finals MVP, putting up 19.4 points and 23.2 rebounds on 60% shooting. Looking at the results of this group over the 1972 season, we see that the Lakers finished with a record-setting 69-13 record. They statistically had the second best defense and easily had the best offense overall that season. They beat teams by an incredible average of 12.3 points per game over the course of the season, which is easily the best margin of victory of all the teams in the GOAT series so far. They dominated the playoffs with a 12-3 record, although they did not have that season's MVP, who was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. To say the Lakers simply dominated the rest of the league this season would be a significant understatement. Along with their record win streak and their record win total, they also led the league in points, rebounds, and assists, and they scored at least 100 points in 81 out of the 82 regular season games. The 72 Lakers were the perfect storm of talent, experience, coaching, and chemistry that led them to have a legitimate case for the title of greatest team of all time. Let me know in the comments section if you think this is the greatest Laker team in franchise history, or if you think another group in purple and gold could have beat them. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.